All right. I'm so excited to be here. Good morning, everyone. Woo! Thank you. It's so exciting to be back here in Park City for the 4th annual All Things Food and Environment Summit. We're always happy to be here. It's such a wonderful time of year, and it's so beautiful out right now. My name is Nierenberg, and I am co-founder and president of Food Tank. For those of you who don't know us, Food Tank is a research and advocacy organization really devoted to telling stories of hope and success in food and agriculture systems around the globe. And we do this with the aim to inspire, motivate, and ultimately activate positive transformation in how we produce and consume food. My co-founder, Bernie Pollock, is in the back in his blue, woo! And today we're here to talk about storytelling and celebrate the filmmaking community and the stories that they help bring to life. And it's impossible for me not to acknowledge the terrible wildfires that have been going on in Southern California, and where so many filmmakers, actors, storytellers, Food Tank staff, and friends we have where they live. And my heart breaks for everyone, including many of you in this room, who have lost loved ones, your homes, your pets, and your communities. So know that we are with you, and I want to thank our friends at the World Central Kitchen and so many other organizations who are trying to provide shelter and aid and great food, and you know, to help everyone impacted by those fires. And I hope those of you who have the financial means will donate to organizations who are there on the ground so that they can continue helping. And I honestly hope that this helps wake up policymakers to the climate crisis and so many other environmental and agriculture problems. 2023 was the hottest year on record until a few days ago when we found out that 2024 broke that record. And you know, we are witnessing climate history kind of take place before our very eyes. The climate crisis is not in the future anymore. It is here, and it's here right now. In the last 5 years, we've seen the first, third, and fourth worst years ever for forest fires globally, in places like Spain, Russia, and parts of Latin America, and of course here in the United States. So obviously we need to take action, and we need to do it very soon. And if we fail, the wildfires, the droughts, the floods, the hurricanes, and the other human-made disasters, they are not natural disasters, they are human-made disasters, will only get worse. We are in an era of cascading crises. And these extreme weather events will last longer, and they will hit communities harder, and they will hit the most vulnerable the hardest. But we have films that can help us tell stories in a different way. They can communicate the urgency of what we're facing and provide solutions. And they offer a way to share what's possible and to give hope, not only about our food and agriculture systems, but about our environmental systems in general. And they can show us a future that is resilient, regenerative, and delicious. So, you know, I think throughout the day, what we're going to have you look at is really some wonderful clips and trailers from powerful films that show how to address the climate emergency, how to address hunger, and how to address the need for food justice. We will also hear from some of the amazing filmmakers, producers, and directors behind these films, along with business leaders, urban farmers, chefs, and other food system advocates. Before we start, I want to thank our partners who have made this event possible at the Nespresso Lounge at the Auberge Resort Lodge at Blue Skies Ski Lounge. That's a mouthful, but thank you. Give them a round of applause. A huge thanks to the Auberge team, including Joe Ogden, Ava Daniels, Ted Fowler, and executive chef Guillermo Tellez. Please give them a round of applause. And another big thanks to our partners at Nespresso. Again, this couldn't be possible without them. Round of applause, please. Was the breakfast delicious? Was it good? Did you have a good breakfast? You have a lot of people to thank for that, including Chef Jeff Ward, Chef Derek Churkins, and the Silver Star team. And I want to thank our in-kind partners, Simply and Nature's Spine. Give them all a round of applause. And I want to thank our production team in the back who is making this all possible so that we can look at it later. Give them a round of applause. Okay, here's where I become a little bit dictatorial. To make sure that we end on time, and we will, the conversations today will be fast-paced and very vibrant. If I have to cut someone off, please forgive me later, because we want to hear from as many people as possible. We have a break built in, so feel free to, step out when you need to and take time for yourself or use the bathroom. There will be lots of time for networking throughout the day during the breaks and lunch and the reception. You'll find more delicious foods and drinks, and you'll be able to meet the speakers and continue the wonderful conversations. I'm really excited for our first discussion, and I want to introduce our first speakers. We have Josh Tickell, a Sundance Award-winning filmmaker and the co-founder of Big Picture Ranch. Give him a round of applause. It's nice to see you, friend. This is a man who always wears a wonderful jacket. It's always velvet, and he always looks good.
Even while I sleep, apparently.
And we have Jessica Padula, the Vice President of Marketing and Head of Sustainability for Nespresso USA. Give her a round of applause. As they settle in, we're going to play a clip from Josh's film, Common Ground. Everyone enjoy.
I said this letter is a warning.
If the soil dies, we die.
So I'm gonna fight to save your future.
Nature is the mother of us all, and if Mama ain't happy...
But there's a way to save our precious soils. It's called regeneration.
It was not just restoring the land to the state we found it, but actually making it better.
Can we mitigate climate change? Absolutely.
It's high time to finally get regenerative agriculture. We can change everything. There's hope. Let's get together.
Woo!
Wow.
And a clang.
Crescendo at the end, yeah.
So Josh, I'm going to start with you. That line, if the soil dies, we die, is pretty powerful. And I want to talk to you about this idea that farmers are often demonized for soil loss, for the climate crisis, but Common Ground and your other films really try to tell a different story. Can you talk about why that's important to you?
Well, I think it's important to, that's a great question, first of all. Seems like you've done this before. I think it's important to all of us. I mean, one of the questions, how many people in this room have been to a farm within the past 3 or 4 months? Oh, you're a food-educated audience. That's unusual. So half of you, roughly. For the majority of people who sit and watch a film, that answer is no. In fact, the answer is not in the past year, not in the past 5 years, most not ever. Bear in mind, we've got 1 million farmers in the US. There's 2 million according to the USDA, but half of them are hobby farmers like myself. 4.5 acres of avocados, llamas, and chickens doesn't actually constitute a real working farm. So 1 million people feed the rest of us. And if we're not connected to what's happening on the ground, there's a tremendous fragility and a tremendous disconnect. How do we know what's happening to the ecosystem? We don't, because we're not there. But the majority of the topsoil in the United States, like most agricultural countries, is gone. That is the source of life. And it's actually the source of wealth. If you really want to look at the economics of a nation, what is the source of the wealth? It's not the gold in a bank, it's the soil. Without soil, you can't grow food. Without food, you don't really have a country. As we're seeing in so many places across sub-Saharan Africa, where people are leaving because they can't grow food. So I think that point is universal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the more we tap into the universality of it, the more we realize the power of regeneration, not just to help those of us who are fortunate enough to live here, but to help everyone. And that's a really powerful concept.
Yeah, this idea of regeneration, and having more sustainable, organic, regenerative farming practices isn't always seamless, though. It can be a struggle. Can you talk a little bit about what you've heard from farmers?
Yeah, it can be a very rough transition. Chemical-based agriculture is very much like pharmaceutical drugs for our bodies. Once a biological system adapts to a constant input of some synthetic thing, you have to unadapt it. And that includes the soil, just like our gut microbiome. And so a typical farmer in the United States grows soy, corn, wheat, or hay. Those are crops that are largely supported by an industrial chemical agricultural system. If I say, hey, wouldn't you like to be regenerative? All these wonderful things, you can have more biodiversity. Within 3 to 5 years, you can make more money. They're gonna go, yeah, but what about the 3 to 5 years where I'm not making more money?
Yeah.
And that gap is critical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what we're seeing with the new programs like Regenified, which is a certification program that farmers enroll in, it's a gradual system. And we're seeing farmers, conventional farmers, drop their glyphosate by 50% in the first year, and within 12 months they're making more money because their input costs go down.
Tell this audience very quickly why glyphosate is not great.
Largest used agrochemical herbicide in America. We use about 1 billion pounds a year. It's known to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's largely used to desiccate wheat or dry wheat right before harvest. It's also used on corn, which is the #1, field corn is the #1 grown crop in the United States of America. It's in our rainwater now, it's in our drinking water now, it's found in most children's bloodstreams, and it is a highly chelating chemical, meaning it pulls minerals away from cells. So if you want to ensure demineralization of a human body, expose it to glyphosate. And that's what we've done for the entire population of the Western world. So reducing that use is a big goal in regenerative agriculture.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Josh.
Yeah, of course, thanks.
So Jessica, Josh talked about how, we've lost our connection to the soil, to the land, to farmers. He also talked about the transition to regenerative, and I know that's something that really means a lot to you, especially at Nespresso. How are you helping farmers who want to transition do that and do it in an economically and environmentally sustainable way?
Yeah, and first of all, what a pleasure to be sitting next to you today and all the wealth of knowledge that he has to share with us and the films that you've made, so thank you. And thanks for indulging me from an Nespresso standpoint to tell our story because I think there's a lot of connection, maybe not here in the US because obviously coffee is not largely farmed in the US, but Nespresso has a program that we've committed to for over 20 years called the AAA Agriculture Program, and we work with farmers in all of the countries of origin where we source coffee, one-on-one, 150,000 farmers, and we know each of them by name. We know the size of their farm, we know the makeup of their family, we know what they need. And so teaching them, like you were talking about, what it means to be regenerative, where they have generations of farming a specific way. They've maybe never had exposure to agriculture norms or best practices. And Nespresso, with many, many partners on the ground, one of which is Rainforest Alliance, but there are others, that we go and we meet the farmers, we shake their hands, we understand what hesitations they have, what reservations they have, the fear of losing income, and we work with them over many, many years to evolve their farms into more regenerative practices. And again, we've encountered the same hesitations, fears, et cetera. And the key thing for Nespresso is that we're going to guarantee them that if they choose to, we will pay them a top dollar for the better quality coffee, because what's beautiful is the soil is what creates a great cup of coffee. That's where it starts. That's where all the taste, all the terroir, that's where it comes from. And so if we're helping them create better coffee, we're going to commit to them, we're going to pay them a better price for it. And that in and of itself, I think, alleviates some of the stress and the strain. We found it can take 5 to 8 years to transition farms fully into regenerative. And so you have to be there for them along the way. Yes, to buy their coffee, but also through all the other types of support that they need as human beings on the ground and in service of that future goal that we all share.
Yeah, and on that point, and on the point of how Nespresso has evolved their work with farmers, something that's really important to me across the world is women farmers and how their rights and their needs are addressed. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And likewise, as a woman in business, it's near and dear to my heart. What we've found is, we believe that any industry should have equal gender representation. But what we've also found is that female farmers, when they're given the opportunity, actually make different types of decisions than their male counterparts, better or worse, but often more sustainable, more empathetic, more caring. And so we have, through that AAA program that I mentioned, really been thoughtful about different cultures in different countries where you need different types of, let's say, leadership training programs, different type of, simply put, if you have an agronomist who's teaching farmers in a country of origin, and that agronomist is female, the woman in the household who maybe was helping on the farm, but actually doing a lot of the work, she now can see that there's a potential career path, that this actually is a business opportunity, and can feel more empowered, right? You see yourself in that opportunity. So we've really invested in driving that visibility, that opportunity through agronomists and farmers in a variety of different ways. Leadership programs and training like that can just be one example.
Women are not just farmers' wives, they're actually farmers.
Yeah, they're not the help, right?
I want to talk to you both about the power of filmmaking and how, you can use the private sector to support your work, and how you can use what Josh is doing to support your work. Can you both talk about that? Go.
Go for it. You want to start?
Well, one of the interesting things we found when we released Kiss the Ground, that's the first in the 3-movie trilogy. So Kiss the Ground, Common Ground, and then Groundswell will be next. And by the way, Kiss the Ground and Common Ground are both coming out on Prime Global on April 22nd, Earth Day. Mark your calendars. Hoping for a lot of you to host screenings in your living rooms. One of the things we found with Kiss the Ground is there was an uptick in corporate interest in this sector. If you look at the Google searches when we began, regenerative agriculture was like zip. And then 4 years after Kiss the Ground came out, we saw this resurgence, this incredible amount of acreage got put into regenerative agriculture in the US. Actually, it went from almost 0 to 34 million acres in 4 years. That's incredible. And so that signifies not just a transition in acreage, but a transition in supply chains, demand, and willingness from CPG companies and the corporate sector to put forward a new branding initiative, not just on the label, but that actually meets the soil. And so that was quite accidental. When we did Common Ground, we were like, okay, let's be more strategic. We created the 100 Million Acres initiative just for the US and started bringing brands in who wanted to pledge to be regenerative. Not any time in particular, just make the pledge. And so we've seen an uptick in brands. When the third film comes out, we're going to make that acreage even bigger. And the goal will be even bigger because we think we're going to meet the 100 million acres goal with our corporate partners, incredibly, by the end of next year. So that's pretty exciting.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, on that point, Jessica, how can the work that you're doing complement what filmmakers are doing?
Yeah, I really appreciate that because I'm a marketer by trade and by background, and I've learned my way, let's say, into sustainability because it's so core to the DNA of who we are. So long before I was also the head of sustainability, I was a marketer trying to figure out how to get sustainability messages out to consumers in a way that would drive the demand and the purchase behavior, because we really believe that we have an amazing cup of coffee, sustainably farmed. The more you can sell of that, the more farmers you can help. It's a virtuous circle in many ways. And so it's sort of incumbent upon us, it's our responsibility to help the farmers by selling more coffee and making sure that people know that that coffee is sustainably farmed and thoughtfully created. And so I think, marketing and advertising can only get you so far. Consumers are very savvy, they're tuning out advertising messages. And so I think it's really interesting to think about how Josh and his team are working with brands and corporations to capture more of the zeitgeist, more of the storytelling element than a branded piece of content ever could. We've long thought that we shouldn't be telling our story as Nespresso from a sustainability standpoint. Let someone else show you how true and real it is. And so hopefully through certain partnerships and over time, we can showcase the message again in order to actually move behavior change that then inspires the investment by corporations in order to further the good of the world.
Absolutely. Before I kick Josh off the stage, I want to ask him to talk a little bit about Groundswell.
The third film. Oh.
Or will Rebecca get mad?
Spoilers.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, Rebecca, my filmmaking partner and wife, and I have made these films together. The third film is kind of the eventuation of a dream that we had when we began Kiss the Ground, which was, what if this wasn't just regenerative agriculture? Like, what if it wasn't just corn and soy farmers in the United States? What if it was textiles and products and an economy and a way of reforestation, a way of bringing back ancient and indigenous knowledge, and a way of synthesizing those things into a global movement. So the third film catalogs what we now believe is a groundswell,
Love it.
a growing global movement around regeneration to balance the climate, create a new food system globally, and really tie people back with ecological restoration and food choices as a means of ecological restoration. That includes coffee.
Yes, it does. Do you drink coffee every day?
Not every day.
It's okay, a lot of people do.
Yeah, a lot of people drink 3 to 5 cups of coffee every
We
day.
like those people.
Yeah. So it's all of the products that we don't think about that we influence that then influence our ecosystem. The third film goes to something like 12 different countries. It's been 100 production days. Our team's been through typhoid, diphtheria, dengue fever, a bunch of other things that the CDC called us about when we came back to the United States. And it's been a life-changing journey for all of us because we have seen literally regeneration happening around the world. It is my firm belief that the people who will bring regeneration forward on the earth are the people who have largely been disenfranchised by the economic system that exists today. I think we're going to see regeneration being championed by 1 billion people. And Groundswell really catalogs the beginning of that journey. Yeah.
Round of applause for that. And when